Let me tell you a story about Breitling. So during the early 1940s, with the world still at war, Switzerland was surrounded by German forces, and they were able to control imports and exports across the border. The grandson of Leon Breitling, one Willy Breitling, now in control, was adamant that his timepieces will make it into Allied hands. So nightfall would come, he and some friends would load up their cars with Breitling timepieces, they would drive to a nearby field, put their headlights on, and the Allies would see the signal, land, and collect the next batch of Breitlings under the cover of darkness to help with the Allied war effort. Nazi intelligence officers operated locally, and Willy did need an alibi, so he made sure he went to the pub on the way back, got ferociously drunk, and that way everybody knew where he was that night. Breitling have never been afraid to defy and never been afraid to do what they feel is right. So what about my own Breitling? I could tell you all of the specs of this watch. I can reliably inform you that it's 43mm in diameter, it's 300 meters water resistant, it's stainless steel, it's quite heavy, and it retails something around $4,400 US. Of course, you can shop around on that. The beating heart of this watch is a Breitling B32 GMT movement. You can turn around and say, hang on a minute Ed, that's basically just an ETA 2893-2, albeit running within COSC standards. I can reply, and I can argue that this watch has the smoothest winding action in the universe, and one of the best crystals in the watch game. It's almost invisible with that double-sided AR coating. But I've got a Zin with exactly the same sublime jewel AR crystal. Why do I need the Breitling? These are all valid points. We could go on, but the paradox is that none of this matters at all. When I look down at this watch, I recall Willy Breitling's daring escapades in World War II to get these timepieces into the hands of Allies, risking it all to outsmart the Nazis. I recall one of my best friends, who operates as an air-to-air refueler in the US Air Force, explaining to me that a lot of pilots and co-pilots to this day wear Breitlings. These watches are used for their purpose, they're trusted in a high-pressure environment, and I really like that. I grew up watching my dad lust after Breitlings. He always had a huge soft spot for them. He still does. We don't live in the same country, but Breitling reminds me of him when we're miles apart. I'll pause with the sentiments for a few seconds because I know you want to hear this bezel action. And if you were curious, it keeps great time, and the lume is excellent up against my lume champion. But back to something far more important. Looking at this watch on my wrist, I feel a genuine rush of warmth and happiness and love for the brand. But only after actually trying on my first Breitling, this quartz Chronocean, did I experience this brand connection. Weirdly enough, I'd always dismissed Breitling. I had one watch in my mind. The Rolex Air King was my grail, and I got swept away by online reviews and positive articles about this watch. It didn't work for me. There's a video about that elsewhere on my channel if you're curious. But I digress. There is a huge problem with watch reviews. Every video perhaps that I've ever made on this channel, and all the other millions of watch review videos on YouTube. We all try and justify every purchase we make with specs, with functions, with how it's going to enhance our lifestyle. But the reality is, if we have food, if we have shelter, and most importantly, we have health for ourselves and for our friends and family, and we know when it comes to time, our mobile phone tells us the time, then arguably a watch at any price point is an unnecessary luxury. So with this in mind, surely the most important thing about a watch has to be how it makes you feel. And how many times have you and I missed out on watches because it didn't quite have this on the spec sheet, or a print or YouTube video said, this is good, but you should buy this instead. Or maybe I could get the watch I really want, but actually this one seems to offer a lot better value, so I'll get that instead. Or because the provided deploying clasp really digs into the wrist. No thank you for that one, Breitling. At every price point, we have options, and we try to make the best choices we can. and nobody likes being ripped off. But surely emotional connection with a watch has to rank over the specs per dollar. If you only take one thing from this video, buy watches with your heart and not with your head. And be open-minded to change your preconceptions about a watch, because when you actually put it on your wrist, everything you thought you know might be overruled by the way it makes you feel. The internet is full of strong opinions, mine included, and we have a tendency to absorb these like sponges, and because of that, how many great watches are you and I missing out on? If you want to subscribe to the channel or like the video, it's much appreciated, and thank you. If not, thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon.